Wow. I so much appreciate the fact that there's such a great room full of people that are here to stand up for life and to support Susan B. Anthony in the incredibly important work that this great organization does. I can't say enough about how great it is to work with Marjorie and the entire team at SBA. As we're moving an agenda through, it's so important, when you talk about why is it important to have a Republican majority in the House and a Republican majority in the Senate, and most importantly, a Republican pro-life president in the White House. How great was it to have Donald Trump here talking about the incredible things that are being done to protect life. And, when you go back to that election, there was so much at stake. And people all around the country, I think, understood what was at stake. But nothing crystallized it more than that vacant seat of one of the legends of the Supreme Court when we lost Antonin Scalia. And, that changed the whole dynamic of the election. Because then people knew, not only are we going to be choosing the leader of the free world, we're going to be choosing a person who's going to be signing or vetoing bills and maybe putting new regulations in place, but we're going to be putting a president in the White House who literally can change the direction of the United States Supreme Court for another generation. And so when Donald Trump put out that list, a lot of people said, that's crazy. Put out a list of who you're going to appoint on the Supreme Court. And he revised it a few times, and in every revision, Neil Gorsuch was on that list, and many would argue was the best person on the list. Now, Hillary Clinton never had to put out a list. You notice the media never asked Hillary Clinton for her list, because you didn't need to see her list. You knew just the kind of person she was going to appoint. I mean, basically, you take Ruth Bader Ginsburg and subtract 40 years, and that's going to be the philosophy of the person that she would appoint. And so that really did help create a new dynamic in that election to encourage people to get out and vote. And what Susan B. Anthony did, Marjorie, what your organization does, not only to promote the policy, which is so critically important, but to back it up with political muscle, people on the streets, door knocking, making sure that people know what's at stake in this election and know how important it is to vote pro-life. In Louisiana, we spell it P-R-E-A-U-X, pro-life. And, it wasn't easy to come behind President Trump, but it is great to work with President Trump because what he has been doing to follow through on all the things he promised. Marjorie talked about it coming up here. Many times, people have told you one thing and done another. Here you've got a president who backs up everything he said with real action. He follows through on his promises, and he is carrying through what can arguably be the most pro-life agenda of any president. And while I'm here, I want to thank the staff. There are so many people that work in the White House, and I know you're going to be honoring Kellyanne. There is no tougher fighter for the things that this president's trying to do than Kellyanne Conway, and she takes a lot of incoming, but she never backs down. And it's great to work with President Trump and his agenda, just what he did on Title X alone, because there are a number of ways in which Planned Parenthood gets funding. But what Barack Obama did is he put pro-abortion people in place that issued those Title X grants to make sure that when they were given the grants out, it was going to organizations like Planned Parenthood. They made that conscious decision, and now President Trump has put in place pro-life people that are giving out those same grants, and he's not going to give it out to people who perform abortion. There's something else that we worked closely with this president on. He talked about it a little while ago, and that is the pain-capable bill. That's a bill that I whipped as the majority whip to make sure that we told our members this was going to be a priority of our Congress to pass a bill that says if the baby can feel pain, you cannot perform the abortion. We passed that bill out of the House. It went over to the Senate. We got a vote in the Senate, and it got 51 votes. Now, you know what's important about having votes is that now everyone's on record. And when you're going out all across the country working on campaigns, you know what's at stake. You know who voted against that bill. I don't know how you can defend voting against that bill, but there were members of the Senate who voted no, and there's going to be elections in many of those states where we're going to have pro-life candidates like Marsha Blackburn and like Kevin Cramer and other members who are going to go and finally present alternatives, and we're going to get more pro-life Republicans in the Senate so that not only we can pass pain-capable, but you know what else we were able to do? working with President Trump, and importantly, working with SBA. And this is where Marjorie understands the strategy of moving a pro-life agenda. It's not just one thing to talk about wanting to be pro-life, but how do you actually get these policies enacted? And so we want to defund Planned Parenthood, but we took it a step further and we said, what's the best way to defund Planned Parenthood? And we looked, and there's this tool of reconciliation where with 51 votes in the Senate, you can move a bill to the president's desk. So we made a decision, let's put defunding of Planned Parenthood in the repeal and replace of Obamacare. Now, we barely passed that in the House with a 1-vote margin. It was not easy, but you know what? We kept working and kept working until we got it. And we passed that bill with 1 vote to spare. And in the Senate, it went over, and they tried to bird rule it out. You know what? It met all the parliamentary procedures. And it shows you, with 51 votes in the Senate, we can fully defund Planned Parenthood. But now we know it's missing because that bill failed by 1 vote in the Senate. We were that close, literally 1 vote in the Senate away from fully defunding Planned Parenthood. So when you go out and you door knock all around the country like you're going to do between now and November, you know what? In those states where that senator voted no on that bill, and they voted to continue funding Planned Parenthood, you can go and find a Republican opponent that's going to defund Planned Parenthood and provide that critical vote. We're going to come back at this next year. We're going to bring a bill in a Republican majority House to continue to defund Planned Parenthood, but with a new Senate, with more Republicans in the Senate, we will get that bill to President Trump's desk. Let's not give up on that fight. Now, as I prepare to propose this toast, I do want to say something about the power of prayer. Because as we talk about standing up for life, we also believe in a deep faith in God. We have our lives from God. God gave us our lives. God is the one who gave us all of our abilities. Now, there are people that are trying to push God further and further away from every element of our society. I was the beneficiary of so many prayers from people in this room. I want to thank each and every one of you who prayed for me and for my family and my recovery. We would not have been able to get through the now 9 surgeries without the power of prayer. And if you look at what happened that day, the only explanation for so many of the things that happened to allow me and everyone else on that field to be alive are miracles, true miracles from God. You can go and point to God's presence. But, you know, every time there's another tragic shooting, the media always wants to ask me, well, gee whiz, does this change your view on guns? And they want to make it about guns. And we just had another horrible tragic shooting last week in Texas. And what I said is, you know, for decades, we've had guns. But you know what they also had decades ago when you didn't have school shootings like this? You had God in school. You had prayer in school. And there's no single answer. But you know what? What harm could there be in maybe bringing some of those elements of the values of prayer and God back in our schools and our other elements of society where it's been pushed out over the decades, and then we wonder why the culture of our youth has changed, where a kid would do the things that they're doing today that they never would have done decades ago. So I just want to kind of come here to thank all of you for what you're doing to support Susan B. Anthony and let you know how important with all of my colleagues here, and I want to thank all of my colleagues, House and Senate, who are here today, who help us in this battle for life, because it's a battle. You're all engaged in the battle. We are engaged in the battle. Marjorie is a great leader in this battle, and I want to propose a toast to what this battle is all about, and we are here to stand up for life. So why don't we all stand up and raise a glass for the beautiful value of what's precious in this world, and that is life. Here's to life. I don't think this is the moment where I just drop the glass on the ground and break it, but I do want to thank you all for coming out. It's great to be here. It's great to see such a beautiful turnout and to have a President, Donald Trump, who is such a leader in this movement and who knows how critically important it is and what's at stake. Thank you all.